I'll never forget the day I turned 17 and I had my first therapy session. And I walked into my therapist's office saying, I hated my life. I hated my school. I hated my friends. I hated my subjects. I hated my day to day. I hated what I did outside school. And my therapist turned around, thought for a second, and said to me, if you hate it so much, why don't you leave? And in that moment began the longest and most incredible journey that leads me to now, of changing my life, of one from absolute misery, boredom, and hiding to expressing myself on the internet, finding a town that I love, and creating a fulfilling life. On not only that, continuing that journey to something bigger. But here's the story of how it began. When I had that moment, everything changed. I was in a Catholic academy school studying maths, further maths, physics, and computer science. I was miserable. I was trying to go to Cambridge, and everyone around me was telling me they were so proud of me. I hated it. I couldn't study. I worked a job on the side. All I would look forward to doing was playing video games when I got home and eating crap food. I had friends, but I didn't feel fulfilled with them. I didn't have any conversations that I enjoyed apart from maybe some friends that I played League of Legends with online on Discord. But I was miserable. And then eventually, once I had this little breakthrough, 1 week later, I quit school. I went from trying to go to Cambridge, like 6 months away from doing my A-level exams, to dropping out. And I remember having the worst panic attacks. And I think this is what scares so many people, is that when you're miserable and when you're in a life that's locked into something really, really crazy and awful, at least it's something. And I remember the existential fear of being 17 and not having a clue what I actually wanted from my life and who I was terrifying. Because I think personally, this is where the school system fails us. You know, if you were to go to university and get a job and do things, you have your hand held the whole time, and that's great. But if you don't fit into that system and you don't want to straight away get a job, and you might be an artist, or you might just be confused because things confuse you, there's no one there to tell you how to do it. And so maybe if you listen to this story, this is how I handled it. What I realized was that I very quickly realized I'd spent my whole life trying to please the adult in the room, trying to tell them the thing that would make them the happiest, either entertain them with jokes or tell them I did well on my homework, something like that. And I realized at some point I just didn't care about myself. And so when I left school, my parents weren't that happy, but they got it eventually. I realized the first thing I needed to do was just chase whatever interested me in the moment. That's the first step to solving the existential crisis of when you have no idea what you do because you leave something. And for me, that was 17, leaving school. For someone else, that could be leaving a relationship, leaving a job. It's weird how cyclical this all is. But my advice to you, and what I did, was when you have no idea who you are or what to do, your one job is to go out there and find it. It's to go and experience things as wild as you can. Just go and try whatever you want within reason, but try whatever you feel pulls your fancy. So for me, I went to a Catholic school with 120 people. I lived in North Wales. The town I lived in had like 10,000 people. 6 months later, on my 18th birthday, I flew to America on my own to do Camp America in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a place where the day I arrived, there was a shooting and a meth lab bust outside the house I was staying. And I tell you what, I have never had a bigger smile on my face, because finally I felt like I was living. And for you, that's all you need to do. Just find the thing that makes you feel alive. And the best thing is, if it makes you feel a little bit guilty that you are wanting to go and pursue it, it feels a little bit too easy, a little bit too fun, you've found exactly what you need to do. For someone, that might be becoming a pro Minecraft player. For someone else, it might be becoming a pro surfer. For someone else, it might be becoming an accountant when their parents said they should be a painter. Whatever that thing inside you is, that just fun, that lights you up, makes you giddy, that's the place to start looking. And the funniest thing is, that will probably feel like you've got the most resistance to it because your heart really wants it. But the part of you that's been pretending that you're not this person will resist it because this is safe. But life isn't about being safe. Life is about living. So what I did was I spent 4 years just chasing experience after experience after experience. And it was incredible. I loved every second of it. There was also some crushing lows and some horrendous moments. And I had 5 more years of therapy picking up the pieces and figuring out who I was and learning how to look after myself. Throw in the fact that I'm ADHD and currently on the wait list to get an autism diagnosis. And I had no idea what any of those were. I had to learn to manage myself, which thankfully has given me the skill of being able to communicate this. But the story won't be easy for you, but it absolutely is possible. So the first thing I did was I went and I adventured. I went to America, I went to Finland, I went to Italy, lived in Spain for 6 months in a yoga retreat center. I lived in Costa Rica during COVID. I lived in Nicaragua. I loved all these things so much. I just said yes to everything. I lived in a van for 2 years. But what happened was with me, and this will eventually catch up to you, is you'll be traveling or you'll be trying these new things and eventually you might start feeling a bit of an ache because just experiencing things isn't enough in life. It's like having a cheesecake without a base. If it's all cheesecake, there's no base, and you're just living in a cheesecake filled existential crisis. I don't know where I was going with that, but like, you can't just live up here. You need a stable foundation. And for me, when I was in Costa Rica, that's the most influency thing I've ever said. But I remember being stood at a beach in Costa Rica, surrounded by beautiful people, trust me, amazing food, and it was all cheap, and being miserable. Because I was like, I want to build something, and I'm tired of doing that thing where you have the same conversation when you're traveling over and over again. So when I was 21, I finally heeded that call of like, okay, I've done enough experiencing things. I've filled my notebook up, which might take a year for you. It might take 6 months. It might take 10 years for you. That's cool. Like, however long it needs to take, it's your life. That's the blessings of life, is you get to experience it. But I came home. And funnily enough, I had accidentally found a little town called Cornwall in Newquay in Cornwall, completely by accident. If I'd have been like trying to be stubborn and using my head, I wouldn't have never found this place. But I'd found it, and I decided 3 months after coming home from Costa Rica, I packed up my entire life. I lived in North Wales, and I moved here, where I'm currently living now, in this flat in Newquay. You can see the beach from the blinds are drawn, but I can see the beach. So that started my next adventure, which is, once you've got your massive scrap focus experience, it's time to start building your foundations. And this is where the chapter for me is this is where I'm currently at in my chapter. I'm 5 years into living in Newquay. And what I found really, really difficult, and I'm going to stay on track here, is this place feels outwardly amazing. Like, burning your life down and going traveling is incredible. You can tell everyone you're doing something, your Instagram feed looks amazing. But it's kind of like going to museums. Like, you're always like, oh, that's amazing, that's amazing, that's amazing. You go to enough museums, you start being like, or art galleries, you start being like, I want to make something. And the hard part about learning to make something and crafting, asking the question of who you are, is it's a lot more boring on the outside. So if you're not learning how to reprogram yourself and learning what that looks like, you can get quite scared and feel like you've not progressed much. Like, for example, I've lived in Newquay for 4.5, 5 years. I've lived in the same flat for 3 years. That's crazy to me. Like, I've not really dated too much, and my brain says I've not changed much. Yet I know that the soul that came to Newquay for the first time, 22, was get panic attacks going to a coffee shop, is infinitely different to the soul of now. And that's where the next skill I had to learn, which was I had to learn to be my own like coach, my own parent, my own champion. I have to be able to look at myself and go, Saul, I know it doesn't look massively different from the outside, but inside, you know how much you're changing. You know how much you're doing different. And it's funny because when I first lived here for the first 2 years, I chased just trying to look different on the outside. And in the end, I never changed anything on the inside, and I felt miserable. Whereas in the last year, I focused on doing only things that I know from my traveling experience and my other experiences really helped. And I felt amazing. And the progress has been so much slower. I don't even have to talk in riddles, by the way. I can just explain. I started a coffee van because I love being at the beach. But my true, deep, inner passion is speaking on a YouTube channel, or speaking in person, or doing coaching, or doing public speaking, or holding events for people and holding space. But that's going to take a few months of posting every day, which isn't immediately visible. So for me, that's where the growing has been. And so I hope that helps a little bit. If you acknowledge that maybe you're in that place of you're in this thing that you hate and you're scared to leave, because when you get rid of something, there's a space, and that's really, really scary. My advice to you there would be, if you're in a space and you want to leave and you're scared of there being a gap, fill the gap with trying to find experiences, trying things. If you don't have the financial means to drop everything and go traveling, just go and try something new once a weekend or once a month. Like, go to a new art gallery, go something really uncomfortable. If there's a resistance, you know you're in the right place. Secondly, do that as long as you need. And just keep a note of like what really were moments where your heart opened up. And then lastly, when it's time to start building the foundation so that those things that light you up can be your everyday, because that's possible. And not only is it possible, you deserve it. You being on this earth means that you deserve the exact life that you want, because that's what the universe wants for you, and that's exactly what you deserve. If you follow this channel, we're going to be going about every part of this every day, 3 times a week. It's going to be awesome. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you another time.